Hi guys, and welcome to Thankful Thursdays with me, Kel. So you guys are going to laugh at me because I do this all the time, but I just recorded this video again without the sound on, so let's check it's there this time. Yes it is. So the topic that I have today doesn't follow a specific theme and is just sort of a general question that came from a viewer, and that's kind of what we're doing this week. We're just looking at miscellaneous questions that hadn't fit anywhere as such at this point in time. So my topic is, how do you cope when there isn't much support available? And the person that sent this question into the channel basically had support from a general therapist and their mum, and felt that that was quite a limited amount of support, and especially as none of it was eating disordered focused. The therapist wasn't a specialist in eating disorders or anything like that. So I wanted to share with you my experience of being in a very similar position, and it doesn't necessarily come with any words of wisdom that will give you a key or a map to solving the situation that you're in at the moment, but hopefully it can give you something from you can take something from my experience that will perhaps help you a little bit at least. So my experience was that during the predominance of the worst phase of my eating disorder, I had very little support. The main support that I had was from my partner. And I did get referred to an eating disorders clinic, but unfortunately they felt that I wasn't suitable for therapy and so didn't offer me any. And consequently I eventually did get therapy, which I got privately, and this, like you, wasn't from somebody who was a specialist in eating disorders. So I suspect we're in quite similar positions in terms of that. I think what I have to say in this video is that you don't need, and my video's just gone really grey, you don't need a wealth of support in order to recover from your eating disorder. I've been around sort of the eating disorders community on the internet since I was 19, so that's quite a long time, about 6 years, and during that time I've seen a lot of people want a significant amount of support from services around them and feel like that is the answer to their recovery. You know, the more people helping them, the better. And I don't necessarily myself think that that's true, because of course I myself recovered with most of my support coming from my partner and my therapist. And why I don't think you need all that support is because the change that you have to go through in order to overcome your eating disorder doesn't come from an answer, a question, a comment that somebody else applies to you, somebody else gives to you that you can use. At the end of the day, you are the person that has to create the changes, you are the person that has to do the hard work. And you know, there isn't a magic cure, there isn't something somebody can say or do that will take your eating disorder away. And there isn't something that somebody can say or do that will take the struggle of the recovery process away either. You know, nobody can take your feelings away so that it is easy. At the end of the day, you have to travel through all of that if you want to recover from your eating disorder. And I think accepting that was empowering in my own recovery process, because I myself had the expectation that I would go into treatment and I would be fixed by treatment rather than I would enable myself to recover. So, you know, don't feel like you're in a bad position because you don't have a huge amount of support. What's really important is your commitment to your recovery and your determination in your own recovery as well, your willingness to change. So in terms of things that are perhaps a bit more practical, I think what's really important is that you make the absolute most of the support that you do have available to you. So, you know, if your mum's currently doing something that is not helpful in your recovery, then you need to be willing to explain that to her, explain why it's not helpful and explain what would be helpful, so that you're getting the absolute best from the people that you do have around you. And the same goes with your therapist, and I don't think it's an issue that your therapist isn't eating disorders specialised. I actually kind of prefer that. I would have having gone through the process, always wanted a non-eating disorder therapist, because I think that it's unhealthy to have such a focus on the weight and the behaviours, and it's much better to see somebody who sees the wider picture of what's causing those behaviours. So vocalising to your mum or vocalising to your therapist what they're doing that's not helpful, what they could do that would be helpful, and anything they can change. And as your recovery changes, your needs will change, so you need to be willing to continually be vocalising that. For example, early on in my recovery, I didn't like eating around people and I chose to eat alone. And so that I had some accountability, my partner checked that I'd eaten, but I ate alone. Later on in my recovery, I came to the place where it would be helpful for me to eat with somebody. And so I had to vocalise that change, and I didn't necessarily have words for why it had changed. You know, I just had to let my partner know what I needed from him at that time for my own recovery, and I guess he needed to have some trust in me that I was always going to be trying to do what was best for my own recovery. Other things that I think are important is that if somebody is your sole support, like your mum, is that they get some support as well, if that's possible, you know, from one of their friends, or ideally something professional. In the UK, BEAT, which is an eating disorders charity, has support groups which carers can go to as well as sufferers. And I think something like that, an outlet for the carer, is really important, because in the long term that means that their emotions will be less raw when they're trying to support you, and they therefore can be more of a help to you. Other things to try is always, you know, get the support wherever you can basically. Never say no to something that's being offered, something that's available, even if it's, you know, not something that seems like it would be helpful, but just give it a try. And I don't know if I've mentioned using excuse me, I don't know if I've mentioned using forums, but forums is something that I found really helpful, you know, sharing my concerns. I've gone really flushed from coughing. Sharing my concerns and my experiences with other people in the same boat. And I know that some people get really worried about the pro-anorexia and the pro-bulimia type forums and such, but there certainly are healthy pro-recovery forums out there. I think that's another way to feel like there's much more support for you than there physically is, you know, in your immediate actual living space type of thing. And things like support groups, if something like that is available, they're not always offered through treatment services, you know, so if you look on the internet you might be surprised and find something. And also self-help books and things like that can be much more of a help than you might anticipate if you're committed to your recovery. And I think that, you know, the first thing that I said in this video about your commitment and your determination to recovery is, at the end of the day, the most important thing. There is no magic wand, there is no pill somebody can give you, and it's not going to change the process. Honestly, the process does not change if you have 20 people helping you or if you have 2. So I wish you the very best of luck in your recovery, and I really have to go because it's somewhere I'm supposed to be. So I hope you're all doing well, and I'll see you next week, guys. Take care. Bye.